And welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin, here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is your story shapes your reality. I know I say this, I talk about this a lot, but I don't think it can be emphasized enough. So today, hopefully, we'll be able to dive into some of the nuance around this to have it make even more sense, hopefully. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling as you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you with us this morning, and welcome to everyone else who's joining us. Again, we're talking about how our story shapes our reality and the reality of our experience. So this comes up because I had a call with somebody last night. It was so frustrating. Actually, it was yesterday morning, but it stuck with me all day. So here it is. This person is doing extraordinary things in the world, and it has been working at it for quite some time and is just tired, frustrated that it's not where she wants it to be, and has a lot of upset going on around that. And this is not the first person I've spoken to who has this same sort of situation where they are sort of trying to push the river, saying, okay, it's time. It's time for things to be showing up the way I want them. And I've had enough, and this is it. And now it's time. And along with this story was that they have no money, they're gonna starve, they can't take care of basic needs, and they don't have any support, and they're alone, and on and on and on, this whole narrative. And meantime, this person has had all kinds of people show up in their lives, supporting them in a myriad of different ways, maybe not with the finances specifically that they're looking for yet, but with other kinds of supports. And I I was saying to this person, it's really important to change your story. And they were like, well, I'm supposed to pretend that the reality isn't the reality. And I said, no, not at all. It's not about pretending anything. It's about meeting the reality. And yes, she has these feelings, and it's important to process those feelings, but not to create a case for them. So here's the deal. When we affirm our reality, When we make these declarations about, I don't have this, I don't have that, I'm alone, I don't have support, I don't have money, I don't have this, I don't have that. What are we doing? It's like a spell that we're casting on ourselves. We're programming ourselves, particularly when there's a high emotion associated with those statements. We are programming ourselves and we are saying, this is how it is. And when we say, this is how it is, then reality tends to align with that. Now, I'm not saying to pretend that that doesn't exist, but I do want to recognize it's so important to acknowledge that the glass that's half full, half empty is also half full. And it's so important also to recognize that we have different feelings associated with a glass that is half full than we do with a glass that is half empty. And those feelings work on our physiology. They affect our bodies, they affect our being and our emotional state, right? The emotional state affects the physiology affects the emotional state. And what these stories are is programs. It's really useful, I think, to look at them as such, to be looking at these declarations, particularly when there's emotion behind them, as programs or incantations, spells that we are putting on ourselves. And I have to say that as one of the people that is supporting this person, when they say, I'm alone, I have no support, on and on and on, it impacts me personally too. It's like, well, wait a second, what am I, chopped liver? Like, this doesn't count. And so what I became aware of is that this person is discounting all the goodness that's there because it doesn't look exactly the way that she wants it to look. And I think that she's not alone in doing that. I think that all of us at one time or another might fall into that kind of pattern where we're not recognizing all the bounty, all the goodness. And what we put our attention to multiplies. It, if nothing else, it multiplies in our experience. And so it's really important to recognize that we do, while we may not define the circumstances of our lives, while we may not be able to alter all the circumstances of our lives, what we can do, where we do have power, is to alter our experience of those circumstances and thereby alter our perception. We alter our interpretation, alter our story. It alters the framework or the context within which we experience our experience. So if instead of saying, I've been doing this for 7 years and I'm done, like it's time for it to come to fruition. Or we could say, it's miraculous that I've been able to sustain this for 7 years. And that there's still opportunity. Amazing, right? So it's the same circumstances, but it's seen through a different lens. And I've seen the power of this over and over and over in thousands of client sessions, where a shift of perspective shifts the entirety of someone's experience and reality. And yet, when we are in this place of fear or desperation, it's very, very hard. Somehow it becomes harder to pull ourselves out of that entrenchment in the negative storyline. And I'm not just saying negative, positive, not talking about toxic positivity, which is such a crazy phrase, where it's about denial. We're not looking at denial here. There's no denial. And there's no denial of the emotions either. But the thing is, we often look at the emotions of upset, fear, etc. We often look at them as the reality, as reflecting the reality rather, and the circumstances, rather than reflecting the stories that we're telling ourselves. We can all work ourselves into a terror, most likely, by telling ourselves stories of, I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to be starving, I'm going to be in desperate health. We can work ourselves into a terror that way. No question about it. And it's interesting because we project these fears into an unknown future. The truth is that the future is unknown. Now, there may be certain things that we can predict. And even with our predictions, even with a greater likelihood of something happening, doesn't mean we don't prepare for it, doesn't mean we ignore that potential or that possibility. I'm not saying just walk off the cliff because it's not certain that you're going to go crashing to the ground. I'm not saying to do that at all. What I'm saying is that we do not know with certainty what the future is. And we can prepare and we can take action to create better potentials for ourselves. Okay. And we seem to be more comfortable so often with projecting, even though we don't know what the future is. We often seem so much more comfortable with projecting a negative determination about that future forward. Like, I'm going to be homeless at the end of the month, instead of something amazing is going to manifest, and I'm going to be looking for the opportunities, actively engaged in looking for the opportunities. It's very different. And one is where we allow ourselves to fall into victimhood, which is a very painful but easy thing to do. Or we can claim sovereignty of our lives in at least to a certain degree, by determining what our story about life is going to be. And I have to say that for me, the framework that has been instrumental in my ability to allow things to unfold to my benefit is taking on the practice. And I call it a practice. It could sound trite, but is actually something that requires, at least for me, an effort, a determination, a conscious embracing of this principle, and that is life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. Life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. If life is happening for me, even the challenges, even the obstacles are for me, even when it doesn't feel that way, especially when it doesn't feel that way, is when I need to look at that and call myself back in from the terror and the panic to come back to that place of life is happening for me. If life were happening for me, what might be available to me in this moment? That's what moves from that question. So Rosalind says, how about the story about something's missing, but I'm not sure what that something is? So I think that that's a conundrum that a lot of us find ourselves in, actually, is feeling like something's missing, or I'm not feeling fulfilled. What's wrong, right? We're looking for what's wrong. We have the sense of discomfort, which awakens us to say, to look, right? Like something's missing, something's out of alignment. That can give us the incentive to look. So it's not that difficult feelings, challenging emotions are bad. They can invite us to be looking in areas that we might not otherwise have looked. They can invite us to ask questions that we might not have otherwise asked. But instead of asking what's missing, we could ask questions like, what might make this an even richer experience? What would feel even more fulfilling? Do you get the distinction? So this person that I was talking about is talking about a block they have about money. And what they want to do is work on the block. And if you listen to that language, and language is important. If you listen to that language, what are they focusing on? What are they affirming? A block. So it's not about denying that there's something going on around money and flow, but it's, instead of working on the block, why not work on flow? I'm working on creating greater flow around money. I'm working on creating more inflow of money in my life. Or I'm exploring and inviting more inflow of money into my life. It's a different context. Because when we're working on a block, what are we doing? We're trying to fix something. We're trying to, and the thing that we're trying to fix, we have to focus on in order to fix it. So in our way, we're reaffirming whatever that is. So we're reinforcing a block when we're working on a block. It reminds me so much of another client friend that I was working with, who was saying that they had a block around commitment. And I was able to say, well, wait a second, you've been doing the same work with the organization that you're committed to for 29 years. You have been consistently doing um, fitness regimen for how many years, you're on a path of self-discovery for how long and how deep. And what they realized was, I don't have a block around commitment. I commit to things I'm committed to, and the things that I'm not, I don't. It's the same. It's different perspectives on the same circumstances. Another client was talking about how they didn't take care of themselves. That was the story. So they were finding all these places that they didn't take care of themselves, so they could blame themselves and make themselves wrong for not taking care of themselves. Why do I have this block about taking care of myself? So if you ask yourself that question, you're going to find all kinds of answers to support that thesis. But instead, I was able to say, well, what about this and that and the other thing, that all of these things that you do to take care of yourself. And here's another instance, and there's another instance. And they were somewhat taken aback, and they said, oh my gosh, I do take care of myself. And it changed their experience. The anxiety and the upset and the make wrong around taking care of themselves dissolved. And then they could look at, well, how could I enhance further my ability to take care of myself, or the ways that I take care of myself? That's a different story than I have a block about taking care of myself. Because then what we're looking for is what's wrong. What's wrong and what's right coexist. And they exist and are reinforced through the stories we tell. Just the words right and wrong, even, rather than what is. So for this person saying it's 7 years, and I said, and 7 years, okay, and you decided that's enough because you said so, that this thing should have come to fruition by now. Why? Because you say so? It doesn't always work that way. My timing, divine timing, whatever, it's not necessarily correlated. And when we push the river, when we have our impatience about it, that helps to reinforce and strengthen our obstacles. So what we're looking to do is to release our resistance so that we can allow for greater flow. And I know it seems paradoxical, especially when we're in a place, like when we say, to get back to your question, Rosalind, when we say something's missing, again, what we're looking for, what's missing. We're looking for where we don't have enough of this or that or the other thing, whatever the thing is that's missing, rather than what would further enrich me, what would further what would be even more fulfilling. It's a whole different framework to be engaging with life. And it's simple, not necessarily easy, especially when we're caught in terror, when we're caught in fear and frustration and sadness. It's not necessarily easy to pull ourselves out of that and create a story that is life affirming. It's not necessarily easy to step back from that enough to generate a new perspective. It takes a deliberate act of will to deliberately turn your head to look in a different direction. It's like, how can I frame this question? Because the mind is like a heat-seeking missile. You program it, you ask it a question, it's going to go try find an answer. Why am I such a mess? Oh, you're a mess because of this, 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 and this. Or what's my brilliance? And that may be a lot more uncomfortable question for a lot of us, but why not ask those kinds of questions? What kind of magic am I going to experience today? What does that do? It programs you to look for magic. So really, really, our stories shape our reality and our experience. I can't say it enough. It's just foundational fact. And the better we get at interfacing with our stories, the better our lives will, the better experience we'll have of our lives. So that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like, follow, and share Enlightened World Network and me. The links are in the description. And until next time, it is always a privilege and a pleasure to have the opportunity to share these